faced was the French leaders' debate, where we saw the major party leaders go at it in the French language. And this was a very anticipated debate because Mark Carney, what many would consider the front runner in this election at this time, to be kind of weak in the French language, and that was a concern for many people. And he's had previously gaffes in the language, and he's sometimes switched from speaking French to finishing his sentences in English. However, today in the debate, it went fairly well for him, to the disappointment of many conservatives, of course. But it didn't go horrible, but it didn't go that great either. He was just fair enough to call him, fine. He didn't screw up majorly. He didn't go crazy in French. He didn't do anything remarkable. And for the Liberal campaign, that was enough. That was good enough for them. In terms of the other candidates, I would have to say that they all the candidates had a fair time today. We had, of course, Pierre Poilievre being in the spotlight as well, as he hopes to get more votes from the Quebec population and appeal to the French people by virtue of his own heritage and being, of course, French. He comes from he's from Calgary, but he's from a French family in Calgary. His name is Pierre Poilievre. He knows French well, and his wife is a francophone, and his kids also speak the French language. But in terms of actual like substantial, you know, home runs for Polyev this debate, I don't think he had that much of a crazy negative or crazy positive debate. Just like Carney, he had a fair and fine debate. It was good. And I think also from the conservative camp, they hope for something like that from Mr. Polyev because they don't want him to seem too, out there going attack dog style like the mainstream media says. But he was more tame, more prime ministerial, like the media wants to portray him not being. And he was had a very calm demeanor. He didn't interject too much. He didn't try to get in the way of other people speaking or anything like you would see in Parliament, how he'd have that very firebrand style, which I mean, personally, I like, but for some reason, Canadians are a bit soft, so they don't like that type of politicians. Though you should be passionate about the issues affecting this country, and it should make you angry if you are feeling disenfranchised. You shouldn't be told to not be angry and that things are all right. That's why I personally support the conservatives because I think they have an understanding of the issues. But back to the point, he had a fine debate, nothing special, honestly. Though he kept to the point, he kept to his main campaign policies and ideas, pipelines, hard on crime, housing, cutting, developmental taxes and stuff like that imposed by towns, incentivizing building, and cutting taxes as well as other things on top of that. But those were some of the main things. In terms of Jagmeet Singh, surprisingly, to his own benefit, he had a fine debate as well. And it seems like everyone had a fine debate here, but he also did. However, there was one point of the debate that was a bit odd, in my opinion, which was Jagmeet Singh's kind of kerfuffle he had with the moderator over being cut off. And though most of the time people sometimes have issues and these kind of things that, yeah, you cut me off, I would like to speak longer. But for some reason, when he was talking about it, this debate, he was kind of rambling on about it and he kind of seemed like a baby, honestly, like a whiner. He went on at least a good 30 seconds to 1 minute talking about how the the moderator should have let him speak more and how the moderator should have let him talk about healthcare, and he really went over the top, honestly, and it made him look incoherent. And on top of that, it was just too long. It was kind of getting awkward and uncomfortable. Not in an uncomfortable that he was speaking some sort of truth to power or something, but uncomfortable that he sounded just stupid. And that really took away from his performance, I have to say, and it will be memorable for that. And I think it will weigh down on his overall appearance to the Quebec voters as well as Canadian voters alike. Um, but it's not something surprising coming from Jagmeet Singh. We've seen how he is on the streets, fighting with people, fighting with random civilian citizens who are just, doing their thing, talking trash to politicians, and he's out there reacting double the heat. But then there's also Blanchette. I think Blanchette was able to speak to the Quebec voters in the way that only a Bloc Quebecois leader can, and that is in a nationalistic tone, a right wing tone, and a left wing tone. All those tones combined together, and then saying that I'm fighting for Quebec. He did that fairly well. He attacked Carney. Um, he really went on the offensive at one point, saying that the 100 million immigration initiative. I don't know the exact name of it, but that was a big thing under Trudeau, and one of those advisors of those immigration initiatives to bring Canada's total population to 100 million by two, 2100 is now an advisor in Carney's party. So he mentioned that in the debate, which I found particularly interesting because usually people just kind of haven't been looking that closely at that in the mainstream media. At least it hasn't been focused on, but and who have been focusing on it is usually the conservative side of the political spectrum, and more so the Twitter space, you can say, and YouTube. Not very large or mainstream YouTubers, sorry, media, legacy media organizations, but he picked up on it and he mentioned it. Polyev didn't pick up on it, I don't think, as far as I remember, but he did, which I found very interesting. So, overall, no campaign or no complaints about the exact conduct in the debate. It was fine. It was good questioning. We could see how much each candidate spoke for, and it was, I think, an all right thing. I could understand what each person was saying, and actually pretty good thing to see that the candidates were dealing with each other in a cordial manner, something that would be missing in other countries like the United States, where there's such a divisiveness that you can't even talk to the other side in a political debate. But here we saw a much more cordial Canadian style debate, which is very positive in my opinion. Though, let's see what happens in the English debate. Expect maybe a more heat to come from the Polyev side, maybe not. Maybe more heat from Carney. We're going to see people speaking in, of course, the primary language of the country, English, and it might take on a much more different tone than the French debate. But let's see, wait to be seen. That's it for right now, folks, and thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day, and make sure to go out and vote.